What's up, Gagins of Chaos? How y'all doing today? Do I look tired? I feel tired. I have a lot of cool stuff coming up. Lots of big announcements in the works. You're going to be hearing about them, so make sure you hit like and subscribe. Also, you'll notice I took down the Christmas tree and merch. That's right, we got merch now. Go to gagegreenwood.com/store and you can buy yourself some Gagins of Chaos merch. And there's some really cool things in there, so make sure you check that out. I'll leave a link in the description, but for now, let's get to our show. Our guest today is Tirzah Hawkins. She's awesome. She's writing a ton of different serials on Kindle Vella, balancing her time, managing to promote all of these different series, and she runs a Facebook group. She's doing so many cool things, and her series are killing it. They're popular. She's in the top 250. She's in those top bubbles all the time. She's doing amazing things. So make sure you check out this interview and check out her series on Kindle Vella. I'll also put a link to those in the description. Have a good time, folks. Nice to see you. And don't forget the merch. All right, I am here with Tirzah Hawkins, who has not one, not two, but 6 serials on Kindle Vella. I usually put a little graphic of all of the serials on the bottom of the screen for the author that I'm interviewing, but if I did that for you, we would be drowning in covers. You are writing an incredible amount of stuff, which is really awesome. So before we get into all your Kindle Vella stuff, let's just talk about your history with writing in general. When did you decide you wanted to be a writer? When did you finally start publishing? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I knew pretty much by the time I was 10 years old that I wanted to be a best-selling author, as that was about when I was old enough to read and understand The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. So as 10-year-olds do, they start rewriting their favorite stories. So I have one about little people that I was calling McGee's that were essentially hobbits. And then when I started reading Stephen King, Eyes of the Dragon was my first Stephen King book at age 12. And then my brother just kept feeding me Stephen King stories to read. And I was like, wow, I want to write this many books. I want to be as well known as Stephen King. So that's been my goal since I was 12. And I just kept writing. Wrote a whole bunch of short stories, started writing longer novels, and then after I became a natural health practitioner, I started publishing nonfiction. First nonfiction book came out in January of 2020, and then when the pandemic hit the world, I had time to sit and watch my retail store, which wasn't busy anymore, and just sat and pumped out as many books as I could. So I published 10 nonfiction books that year, and just got back around to my first love, the fiction, in November of 2021.
You wrote 10 books in 1 year?
Yeah, I did. Yes, the fastest one. I wrote the first draft of it. It's the only book that I've been able to write by dictation, and I wrote the first draft of it in a week.
Wow, that's insane. Yeah, I feel like that's a common theme with when I talk to Vella authors is the combination of a pandemic and then Vella coming out just opened up this opportunity for I feel like it's rekindled writing for a lot of people because it's something that they've always wanted to do, but life makes it difficult to pursue that course sometimes. So it seems like that's a common theme, that the pandemic hit, people had a little more time to follow their dreams, and then Vella came out, and it was just a great opportunity for us to put it out there, which is pretty much my story as well. Also, like your story, I read my first Stephen King when I was around 12.
Yeah. Well, and I think that for me, Vella really rekindled not only my writing, but my reading as well, because previously, for a few years, because of school, I was predominantly reading nonfiction and was devouring nonfiction books. So then when Vella came around, it was like, oh, I can sample all of these stories. And so it's now gotten me back to reading the fiction as well, without having to get another bookcase for my house.
So you published your nonfiction for a while, and then what what made you decide to publish your fiction on Vella specifically?
I had a story I'd been holding on to that I'd written the first 2 chapters of, called Dark, and that story was my husband's absolute favorite. So he kept asking me, he's like, "When are you going to work on this more? When are you going to work on this more?" And I think the story even scared me a little bit, and so it's like I'm afraid to write this story. Um, but then I had learned about Vella in October and just thought it was a really great way to get my writing out there and get feedback on a story that hadn't completely been finished yet. So it was nice because I felt like I was going to be able to explore the story with others while I was writing it at the same time.
And that one, Dark in particular, has done very well. I see it in the top of the tags for its categories all the time, and it's ranked in the top 250, right?
Yeah, it's been this last week. It was like 180 on the Vella site, and it's the story that if I don't put out, like if I've fallen behind and have too much to do and there hasn't been a new episode, I regularly have people Facebook messaging me asking like, when's the next episode?
So how do you balance your time with writing? Because one of them is complete, right? Is it Templeton? Is that the one that's complete?
So
Or is it,
well, Templetown, yes, has been a completed story. That one was a NaNoWriMo project that I actually cheated and used it a second time for a Nano to do a next edit of it. Spider Sight is a complete story that is finished. It's marked complete on the Vella site and will be moving to ebook and paperback this week, actually, is when that will happen. And then Templetown is almost completed, and it's on my end it has a finish.
so yeah. So how do you balance writing? I do write like how many do you write a week?
My goal is to write an episode in each story a week. Um, some of those episodes come easier than others, but I am a little blessed. I don't. My husband is very supportive of me. He'll actually go and watch his news stories in our office in the computer room, so I can sit in my rocking chair and write. Owning a quiet retail store, I get to write at work as well. So, I mean, it fits in. It's like I go to work, but I also get to write while I'm there.
And that's you own the retail store?
Yeah, we have my husband and I. We own a gym and a retail health store.
Oh, nice. So why did you decide to put out multiple at the same time as opposed to like writing one for a while and then switching to a different? Did you just felt like it? You just wanted to put out as much as possible, or what was your reasoning behind that?
I would say it was threefold. Um, for because I don't have ADD, but my brain kind of works better if I have multiple projects going. So I like to have a lot of unfinished products at the same time. So like even when I was like learning how to sew, it was like, okay, well, I'm gonna start this one and now I'm gonna start this one. Um, so and then that's the way I read as well, is like I probably have like a dozen books laying around my house in various stages of being read, so it's the way that I write. And then just getting into Vella from the beginning, like the bonuses have been pretty good. And um my husband and I were in the process of selling our businesses and moving to Arizona, so it's like I really want to be able to work from home and have this be my full-time income. So just learning how to buckle down and be dedicated to that writing now will be easier and make that transition smoother.
So when you're writing your new episodes for the week, do you ever have to like look back and remind yourself of what's happening in one plot and what's happening in a different series?
how do you keep straight your characters and your plots and your themes with multiple stories going at once?
That's actually what caused the biggest break that I had to take in writing Dark was I had so many characters going that I had to go back and I had to reread and take notes on the first 40,000 words because it was like I was like, oh shoot, I don't remember what color of pickup truck Willis's truck was. And so I had to go back to episode 1 and it's like, okay, he has a white Ford Ranger. I need to like not get that wrong, 5 chapters later. So going back and taking notes, what color is this character's hair? How many people, how many days into it has it been? How many people are in the group at that time? So yeah, I have bullet points for my longer stories that have those in there, and then I keep down below whatever scene I'm writing the characters' names, and anything that I know about them at that point is always right there in front of me.
That's cool. Yeah, I had in one of my series I was writing ahead, so I hadn't actually published these episodes, but I was writing these episodes, and like 4 or 5 episodes in, I said to myself, "Wait, I haven't brought up the dog in a very long time. Where has he been through all this?" Then I had to
Right.
go back and fix it. So what are your long-term goals for these Vella series and your writing in general? I know you said you want to be a best-selling author, so that's one of them. But
Yeah, I really I mean, I keep going back to like I'm gonna have 50 books, but I mean, by the time that I get to 50 at the pace that I'm going, if I can get out 6 or 8 a year, it's not gonna take very long to get to 50. But yeah, most of them will be moved to into ebook and paperback afterwards. I plan on recording the audiobooks for all of them. So just things like that.
okay, so you wanna put everything into ebook and paperback. Do you change anything when you transfer it from Vella to paperback, or do you keep it exactly the same?
I might switch up. I really don't change much on the story front, but I'll change some of the length of the chapters. So, like for instance, his game, I've been writing that with very short, snappy scenes. But as I'm writing it in my Google Docs, because that's where I do all of my writing is just in Google Docs. So I have where chapter 1 starts, and then like all of these episodes are within that will then just become scenes within that chapter. So it's going to have much longer chapters, whereas the Vella has shorter episodes.
Yeah, shorter, choppier, kind of like ending it on those big cliffhangers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that works well for scene breaks. That will make people when they're reading will also be like, oh, I have time for just one more scene because they're nice and short. It's just another page or so.
Yeah, yeah. When because I'm gonna transfer mine to ebook too. I think it's something I've been going back and forth on for a long time, whether I would or not. And I'm trying to like format it for ebook. And there's actually some chapters that I had merged together to hit that 600 word limit for Vella.
Mm-hmm.
So I was able to break those up. But then there's other ones where, yeah, I feel like I could lengthen them or just strengthen them as a chapter compared to the quick pace of the Vella. So what is that? What is some advice you would give to people who are just starting out on Vella, or some things that you wish you knew when you first started?
Just keep writing. Like that's the best thing when people want to know how to improve their writing is if you just keep writing. By the time that you finish a project, even with me, writing Spider Site was only 55,000 words, and so by the time that I got to the end of it, yes, you look back and your first couple of chapters are embarrassing because through that process you already learned how to be a better writer. But if you just sit and you keep editing that first chapter, that first episode until it's perfect, you're never going to get anywhere. And I think that people they wait, they listen too much to that voice that tells them they're not good enough yet. And but some of your best feedback can come from those beginner readers that you have, especially within the Vella community. I've just found that we've had such positivity and people willing to help. So if you ask for feedback and you're open to receiving it, like just always you gotta have a strong stomach for some of the things. You're putting your babies out there into the world.
Yeah, it is. It's a really good writing community, and everyone is very supportive, and I love that.
Yeah, I've
So,
I've found a lot of friends in the Vela community just by putting myself out there and being willing to engage with people.
so when I looked your name up earlier, you're all over the place. you're you're on there's like audio sites that have your stories on there, and you're pushing your work out everywhere and working really hard to promote yourself. Um, so what is your strategy to get your work out there? Are you more of someone who's going to go wide, or do you think you'll go to KU? What's your long-term plan, and what's your strategy for getting new readers?
Yeah, so I did put the first part of Dark into KU because I never dabbled in KU. I am a part of the Facebook group Wide for the Win. So when I started even my nonfiction, it was always about going wide, not having your eggs in one basket. And so, yeah, applying for other serial sites if you like the serial episodes. So there's a few of those that I'll be looking to put my stories onto, and taking the rest wide. So the first book of Dark won't sit in KU for very long. And the biggest thing about promoting yourself, like being consistent on these other sites. So I just try to make sure that I post on Instagram or TikTok a couple times a week, just so that I'm following up with that. I'm not sure I'm doing TikTok right. I never looked at it until I was like, oh hey, everybody's saying that we should be promoting our books on TikTok. I never really even had it installed on my phone up until a couple weeks ago. But one of the best ways to bring in new readers, and especially since we don't have as many serial fiction readers in the United States, we're educating people on that. And I have pulled over a few of my friends into serial fiction. It was funny because someone was reading Spider Sight, and they're like, the story's not finished, but there's no more for me to read. How do I get to the rest of your story? And it was like, well, it's as it's being published. You have to wait until it's finished. So there's a lot of education there. But yeah, just making sure that you stay in front of people. It's been great to join you know, as an author, somebody that like wants to make it their business, joining your local Facebook community pages and promoting yourself there as a local business, like, because writing is a business if you're publishing to bring in an income. And always when you look at taking your stories and your books wide, having a first in the series for free. So while not all of my stories are connected, all of my horror genre books are going to be in the same series on Amazon or Barnes and Noble and Google Play, so that you find the first horror book and then it'll bring up, oh, here is the next horror book that I've written. In that way, it just makes it easy for readers to find the next book that I have out.
Do you connect the stories in any capacity, so you can kind of make it like I don't know, like they're all set in the same town or anything like that?
Right now, they're just connected by genre, really. Yeah, I know Stephen King brilliantly weaves in a whole bunch from Derry, Maine, and the Randall Flagg character is sprinkled throughout. As whatever RF initials, he's somebody else in different ones. So, I mean, he was in The Stand, he was in Eyes of the Dragon, and so no, just with the horror, it's mostly by genre.
Gotcha. Do you have long-term plans for like Dark is still running? Is that going to be like a multi-book series, or are they all going to be just individual
Yeah, Dark's gonna be at least 3 books. I've already been planning book covers. I write books really well if I have a book cover for them. I've been trying to figure out with the names what it could be if it was more than 3, because I'm like, it could be dark, darker, and darkest. But then where do you go from there in keeping that? So it was like playing around with like, it could be dark and dim and darker and like, yeah. So that one's gonna be at least 3 books. And then my fantasy series, I have at least 4 books planned and mostly outlined for that one.
And that one launched today, right? Or
Yes,
yesterday?
that one I just hit publish last night, and I was like, oh, that'd be so great to wake up in the morning and see that the Monarch's Daughter is live. That one I've been working on writing since I was 12, so we're going on 26 years now of writing that story and how it's shifted and morphed. And
That's cool. So let's go through all the stories that you have. So we'll start with Dark, because that's your big one. So tell us a little bit about it, and I know you don't want to give spoilers and stuff, but any kind of hint towards its future that people can look forward to.
One of my favorite things about Dark is it was inspired by my husband and I. We like to read a book to whoever isn't driving is reading a book aloud to the driver. And he was like, I remember going through Aurora, Oregon on the way to my brother and sister-in-law's house, and we had just started reading The Hunger Game, and I had never written anything in first person, but as soon as like he started reading, I just had like this whole scene of the airplane from Kelsey's point of view, and that there was some reason why they were landing, but they shouldn't be landing yet, and just playing around with that. And I knew that I wanted them always kind of chasing the sun of like, why is the darkness bad? Why can't they be where the sun isn't shining? So they're always following it during the day, and then at night they're always going back the other way to try to get to it quickly. And so that one was a bit inspired, not only by the Hunger Games, but also by Stephen King's The Mist, where there was things that were in the mist. And so just trying to do my own survival take on it without copying anyone, but taking this inspiration from it. So when I started writing Dark, I instantly knew the very first scene, and I instantly knew exactly how it was going to end.
That's such an insane concept. I love it. Because well, I mean, even in Winter's Myths, I have a thing that happens at night that people are afraid of. But there's just this concept of flying to keep up with the sun is such a cool concept. I love it.
Well, and my husband's a huge airplane nerd. Like he's got like he could basically, without having taken lessons, like he could land an airplane if he needed to. Like he's done like the VR simulations and all of that. And so it's been really fun to talk to him about, okay, what size of plane, how far can it go, how often do they need to refuel, and all of that. I tried to keep it as very accurate to real life. Because you go back and watch, it was funny, he just rewatched Con Air last weekend, and he's like, okay, them pulling the plane out of the desert, like the landing gear would have been broken off. Like he's like, it's not possible with what I know of planes now. But when you're 15 and watching it for the first time, like it's like the best movie ever, and like, isn't this so cool? So I wanted to keep it really true to, while it is horror, and while these creatures from the dark don't actually exist, like keeping everything else to physics, like the real life physics that we deal with in every day.
That's awesome. So let's go to your completed series, which is Spider Sight. And so tell us a little bit about that one.
So Spider Sight is based off of a short story that I wrote when I was about 12. it was funny because when I shared that story on Facebook, my best friend that I had since I was 5 and she was 4, um, she's like, I remember you reading that to me when we were kids. And it was like a 5-page short story. And when I finished it, my older sister was like, okay, you have to write more of that, was her response. She's like, this is really good. And then when I shared it with my older brother, the one that the one that was recommending all the Stephen King books, he read it and his response was, you can do better than that. So I took that to heart in a good way. It's like, okay, I'll keep writing, I'll keep working on it. And yeah, so that was a NaNoWriMo project. And I write a lot of stories about spiders and being afraid of spiders. So even in my new one, The Monarch's Daughter, even though she's like this amazing elf creature, there's a reason why she's afraid of spiders. So I've always been arachnophobic ever since I was little. I was a baby and would see a spider and would scream. Um, yeah, so it was like, what is the worst thing that a spider could do? Because whenever I see them in my house, like I can walk into a room, if there's a spider in the room, I will know like instantly. Like my eyes are just drawn to it. And I always like, husband, you have to come here and kill this for me. He's like, why? I'm like, because it's trying to attack me. Okay. Like it's going to kill me if you don't kill it first. And that's how I view spiders. So they're naturally evil. So I was like, how evil can a spider be?
I saw a northern black widow last year, and it was like terrifying.
That's the scariest thing about moving to Arizona for me is like, it's not the fact that I've never been to Arizona and I'm just going to up and move there from Oregon. It's the fact that they actually do have tarantulas there. And but I did see that there's these big frogs that eat them. So if I just have a pond nearby and have these bullfrogs around, they'll keep the tarantulas away.
Good idea. All right, so next up is Templetown, which is season 1 is complete, right?
Yes, season 1 is complete. That one will only be 2 seasons. Templetown was inspired by the lottery. I forget who
Shirley
writes.
Jackson.
Yes, yeah. So I just I had read the lottery and was like, okay, what can I do with this? You know, what if there's this town that you go to and they're super strict about your rules and how they live, and so it's funny because it's set in 1850s. Again, I tried to keep it historically accurate. That's when the potato famine hit in Ireland, and so all of these Irish are fleeing to Boston, and so like crime rates in Boston are going up. The Irish are treated very poorly. They're living in slums. And so I took this family that is, well, it's a couple, they're married and they want to start a family. And so there's some tragedy that strikes really close to home. So they flee to Templetown, which means a place of sanctuary. But it's got really this morbid history about it and all of these strict rules. And so every day of the year is assigned a name. So if a baby is born January 1st, they have to be named Aaron. And so there's these twins in the story, these 2 boys that were named on January 1st, and they're both named Aaron. And so Daisy has moved there with her husband, and she's like, wait, what if a girl is born on that day? And the midwife and the town leaders are all, well, that doesn't happen here. Only boys are born on January 1st. And so it's just, yeah, where that goes.
Yeah. So, yeah, you can imagine where that one hits.
And that one, when it goes to ebook form, is going to be rewritten into third person. It was originally a third person book. I rewrote it in first person because that was my strongest point of view of writing at that time. And so that's going to switch because there are some characters, in order to fully understand the full paranormal behind the story, there needs to be some scenes from other people's point of view instead of just from from Daisy. So that's a good reason to read the Vella and then to read the ebook or paperback when that comes out, because you're going to get some more viewpoints and backstory of other characters.
Cool. Yeah, that's a good way to do it too, because then no one feels like they took the wrong path. You know what I mean? You want to read them both.
Exactly. Yeah. They're both going to come across as really unique stories.
Cool. What about his game? I'm
That
drawing
one-
this up like a little lottery, like we're pulling up your book names one by one. You have to guess which is next.
Yeah. I don't even know what made me start writing that. I was just like, just that first scene of she's running through the woods, in just her bra and panties, and it was like, okay, so why, and it's made very clear in that first episode of that she had been kidnapped, tortured, and then fell in love with the guy that tortured her and did all of these horrible things. And so I was like, what is the craziest scenario that I could make and have somebody fall in love with that person, like, and have that be just that ultimate betrayal, that they didn't realize that was the person that had, been the psychopath that kidnapped him. And I just wanted like those really short, I'd recently read a Vella or two that had like these short, snappy chapters. It was Pointed Conspiracy.
I love that.
Oh, that one's so good. And I was like, oh my gosh, she's just pulling me in, because it's like, just one more. It's just 7 tokens to keep reading. Like, I've got 2 minutes. Like, I've got 2 more minutes. And so, yeah, I was like, okay, I need to do my own with those short chapters that just really pull you in like that. So it's really not going to be more than, by the time it's finished, 20,000 total words. But just like, okay, what's that ultimate betrayal? How twisted could an actual human being be?
Well, you'll have to read more episodes and find out.
Yeah.
And I didn't get this one in the little captions for the bottom, but Dear Diary.
Oh, Dear Diary. So that was my first potato chip one. I will come back to it. It's been abandoned for a little bit, just because I had all of these other ones going that I wanted to work on. That one was inspired after reading. It'd been on my mind to do a story for a while after reading Jack Ketchum's The Girl Next Door, which is a horrific book based upon an actual real life event. If you go, I did the research after reading it to see, okay, how close to real life it's like 80%, 90% accurate. Like, it's horrifically accurate. And I was like, okay, like, this is again based upon a real life monster. And so that's what I wanted to do with Dear Diary, was incorporate that. And then I'd gotten a newsletter. Somebody had sent a writing prompt of, put something in like your local, set it in your local neighborhood, and like give it gothic elements, and like how creepy can you make your local neighborhood. And so we just had some people nearby build a property. And so I was like, wouldn't that be weird if you had like this brand new house and things in it like started aging overnight, or you came home from work and something was just covered in cobwebs that would have taken like 100 years to get there, but it happened in hours. So just combining those elements, and it's like, how creepy can I make somebody's like new house that they just had built? Because we don't associate creepiness with new developments. It's always the old. And so how can we make something new creepy?
That's awesome. Yeah, I've read a lot of Jack Ketchum, and he is ground floor on the brutal, man. He really can make a story brutal.
I love it.
Yeah, his fiction stories are too. And actually, the first short story that I ever published a fellow horror author said that I was going to be the next Jack Ketchum, and I said, I don't know if I want to be the next Jack Ketchum. I love his stories, but I just don't know if that's the route I want to go. And then lastly, we will go with your brand new one.
Yeah, the Monarch's Daughter. That one actually, it's funny. It's been in the works for the longest, and it only got its name 2 weeks ago because I hired a cover, a graphic designer to do the cover for that one, and it's like, oh shoot, in order to finish a cover, it has to have a name. Because previously, my husband and I, like talking about it together, we just called it the Flanae books because Flanae is the main character. Um, she's my alter ego. That's my World of Warcraft name. Every time I start on a new server on World of Warcraft, my first character is always Flanae, and we both have red hair. So yeah, that one's it's about some elves that, because I really love elves. Lord of the Rings was one of my first stories that I loved, and then shortly after reading Lord of the Rings, I was introduced to Star Wars, and um, I'm one of those geeks that had a crush on Darth Vader. So I was like, how can I make a Darth Vader character lovable? And what's the backstory that makes Darth Vader lovable? So the Kovad Tide is the guy in that, and it's like, okay, so how do I take somebody that is evil and make like this perfect elven person fall in love with them, and why would that happen? Why would an elf fall in love with a human? And so they, very early on, you find out that they get mind linked together because he kills her father in front of her when she's 4 years old. So again, like, how do you come back from doing that to somebody? And that story, so we start with her, and it's in a futuristic sci-fi setting, but the story encompasses not only her, but then her uncle is 4,000 years old, and they're actually tainted elves. They're called Kalia because they've been tainted with this giant cat blood. So they're almost, if you made an elf a vampire. So they've got the pointed ears, but their eyes are big cat eyes that they have. They're not human eyes, and they have claws. So Flanae is very self-conscious because she looks up to and idolizes elves, but she's not one. She's more of a tainted elf and has her own insecurity issues with that. But the story spans like this 4,000 year timeline of how the Kalia were made by this evil sorcerer, and then into the present day of the Kalia, the good Kalia, trying to stop the bad Kalia from controlling the galaxy.
So you have a lot of different series, and I feel like prior to this one, they were all largely paranormal and thriller, and then this one is more fantasy sci-fi.
Yes, this one is definitely fantasy sci-fi. There are horrific elements to it, so it's not something that somebody should just think that pick this up without worrying about the content. So that's why I put the horror tag on there. Is like, I don't really want to give away what happens in the story with like content warnings, but here's your horror tag. This is your content warning on it.
I think that's how I kind of do mine too. It's like I write mostly horror. Winter's Myths is more, I would say, towards the fantasy side and dystopian. And the newest one I have is more towards the like urban fantasy sci-fi side, but they're all dark fiction. And I think that's what we can kind of layer it as. Everything we're writing is dark fiction.
It is, yes. This is not for the faint of heart.
Yeah.
It's not whimsical fantasy.
Yeah. I think that's all the questions that I have. Is there anything you want to tell everyone where they can find you, what they should look for, what they can look forward to coming up, anything like that?
Yeah, so if you want my newsletter, it's my full author name of TirzahHawkins.com. And my goal is to send out a newsletter weekly. So people on my newsletter, they'll be the first that, if they want to get art copies to review things before they come out in ebook or paperback. If you want to be the first to read things, if you want to know what books I'm reading, I'll share it in the newsletter as well. Because I just found out about Jack Ketchum in March from taking a horror writing class, and so we're always looking, as readers, we're always looking for that next good author to chase, and so I'll make some recommendations there that obviously won't mostly be Stephen King, because we all know about him.
And I'll put a link in the description of this video too, so everyone can sign up for her newsletter.
Yeah, awesome. No, this was fun. Thanks for having me, Gage.
Thank you so much.